Ben, thank you for joining us on Business Minds.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, so tell us about yourself, how long you've been living in Naples, and what business or businesses do you own right now?
All right. Well, originally from upstate New York, I moved down to Naples 2008 to start my business, Pyure. We are the #1 organic stevia company in the U.S. That's our niche. We specialize in organic, sugar-free solutions. So we have a whole suite of different products. We're in retailers like Walmart and a handful of Amazon, just to name a few. We have a line of baking products, liquids, blends. We have a hazelnut spread that's incredible. It was $53 on Amazon. We have syrups from caramel to maple to chocolate. I'm probably forgetting a handful of other products, but yeah, that's been doing it for a long time, 15 plus years. We also have a B2B business, so not just retail. We offer food, beverage, nutraceutical, cosmetic manufacturers, sweetening solution for their products. We help other companies take sugar out of their products. That's been the jam for a while.
Right.
So bootstrapped the business, started from zero. Hustled in my early 20s. Made a little bit of cash and rolled it into Pyure.
Yeah.
No investors, no VC. It's a pretty crazy story. I look back, I'm like, how did I do this without the conventional resources?
Right. So let's go back to how did you start? Did you go to college?
I did.
You did go to college.
I did.
And then why did you go to college? Did you go to college because you wanted to go to college, or was it something that was told, go to college, get a degree, get a job, be successful?
We were talking about that earlier. To your point, I went to college because I was supposed to go to college. Did I want to go to college? Was college really the fit for my mind? I'm a creative. I'm thinking sometimes 2 or 3 steps ahead to the left. I've missed, it's a blessing and a curse because your mind's consistently thinking about other ways to do things or to solve things. And, I think, university and college, I think it's a good way to get you thinking and giving you the right protocols. Could have I done, truth be told, everything I learned with building this business wasn't necessarily in college at all. Okay. It was kind of trial and error. And I would say I studied communications.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So from college, you graduate college. What do you do? What's your first job?
First job, went back up to upstate New York, Rochester, where I'm from, and got my first job in selling ingredient commodities. Moving to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Worked with a small little shop there on the phone all day, making hundreds of phone calls, selling commodities, ingredient commodities, from sesame seeds to flour, to all sorts of ingredients. Really hard, cutthroat business, but I actually became pretty good at it. Did I love it? No. Was it a means to an end? Yes. Was there a big lesson from that process? Absolutely. I ended up actually leaving to start my own business. I was like, wait, I can create my own, I can basically pay for my own phone line and do this myself out of my own office. And so that's what I did. It was a very cutthroat business. And what I learned from that was I never want to be in a business where it's about a fraction of a penny. Being a creative and innovative mind, you're just like, well, what if we put this and that? And then there's a margin if we blend here. So it was a tough game, but I learned a lot. And in that process, for me, it was, all right, what can I create that's a niche? What's innovative? What's first to market? Because then your story becomes a bit differently. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the person on the other end of the phone is like, well, okay, great. You got sesame seeds. Perfect. I need them. However, what's your cost? And then it becomes, a conversation around cost and quality. So again, valuable in the experience, but what I learned is whatever chapters I get into, I want to be able to tell a story in a way that, here's what I have that's unique. Yeah. You're getting people intrigued, especially if you're creating this, by yourself, not necessarily by yourself, but you do the work, you create something first to market. The story is very different, and it's not about a fraction of a penny.
Right. And it's not only creating something good, but also putting the product in place, right? Like, did you have any difficulties like finding where to put the product or who to talk to, like connections, you know?
Yeah.
So was that a hard part in your business?
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, I'll tell a little bit of the story. I got into ingredient commodities, got out of that business, worked for a family business in the bakery industry, working with bagels and other baked goods. It was a blessing because I had the opportunity to really understand my creativity. You know, so something, I don't want to say that we were selling commoditized bagels, but frozen private label big business, there's not tons of innovation, but that gave me the opportunity to think a little bit outside of the box. We launched the first, you know, certified organic bagel. This was, you know, 2005, 2006. I saw the whole low carb thing happening back in the day. It's been changed over to different, you know, from keto to, you know, the primal diet. There's a whole other 3 or 4 other steps after the Atkins diet. But yeah, 20-something years old, I convinced the Atkins team that we can make a low carbohydrate bagel, and somehow we did.
What was your? I don't mean to cut you off. Cut you off. But what was your role in the bakery?
Sales. You know, sales and innovation, and in a family business, it's always an interesting dynamic, right?
It wasn't your family business, right? It was.
You know, it was my family business in upstate New York. Yeah.
Okay, so
grew up in an entrepreneurial environment as well.
Okay.
You know, I watched my dad start a business from nothing. And he built a pretty good business, but you know, my dad's from Brooklyn, old school mentality. You know, sink or swim.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily, hey, let's everything is easy.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for, you know, for the challenges that he put in front of me. But yeah, that was just such an incredible, it was hard, really good experience being able to launch unique products. And I realized, like, this is what I love doing. Is, you know, that's where I'm passionate, is being able to create things that don't exist and tell those stories.
Yeah.
So, you know, from there, being in health and wellness, I've been a yogi, snowboarder, skier. You know, having that mindset, you always want to keep moving and doing something. I liked Red Bull, but I didn't like the sugar that was in it. So, you know, I started formulating out of my kitchen a healthier version of Red Bull. I was trying to make it natural and sugar-free, and there wasn't any ingredients out there that were readily available. And I actually stumbled across stevia in a small natural trade store. And it wasn't approved by the FDA, and on it tasted like shit. I'm sure if you guys have tried stevia, like, not all stevia is created equal. We'll get into that conversation later. But yeah, so I taught myself how to formulate. I stumbled across stevia. It tasted horrible, but that was kind of my aha moment. I was like, wait, if I could figure out a way to make this taste like sugar, I could change the way how food and beverage manufacturers are producing food, and create better for you products for health conscious consumers, as well as diabetics. So it was just like, you know, my whole thing is you got to be passionate about something, and for me, it's doing good while doing good, so I can create a good business while helping people. You know, in theory, that's great. To answer that question, there was a lot of work in between to get there.
Right.
I went to, you talked about South America. One-way ticket to Colombia. That's where originally I was starting the business. I don't want to say I had no idea what I was doing, but it was a learning curve. It didn't exist.
How old were you?
26, 27 at the time.
You were 26 when you were starting Pyure? Okay.
Yep.
And then you went to Colombia?
Then I went to Colombia.
I just had to know the age. I'm trying to put the timeline.
Yeah, it's a lot. You know? It's a lot to unpack in 15 years. So, yeah, I went there.
Why Colombia?
Because they were kind of at the forefront of stevia. Okay. I ended up collaborating with a guy that was growing it outside of Medellin. So I went down there, and everybody at that stage in 2007, 2008 was figuring it out. So there was still this just unknown about the ingredient. It wasn't approved by the FDA, but you've got, you know, aspartame, saccharin, sucralose that were known carcinogens. That there was a natural alternative out there. So like the buzz was out there, and people were just kind of in real time figuring it out. So yeah, I got my first account. We were actually doing a private label for a company. I convinced them to actually give me the cash up front, and I was like, holy shit, I actually have to figure out how to make this. went to Columbia. I mean, it was such an interesting learning curve in that first. I mean, I was so excited. I mean, looking back, it was like probably one of the smallest checks at the time, but it was like such an amazing victory of like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We've got something here. The branding was there.
Yeah.
I was doing the formulations out in the kitchen, so it's not like I didn't have anything. But we had to figure it out actually how to put it together.
Do you think that was a huge step forward where you get, because financially, I think launching a product like this, I think takes, some money, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had $150,000 to work with that I made.
So that's what you will say. That's the money that you started with.
Yeah, I rolled the money that I made in my early 20s into this. I had some pretty good breaks.
Your lifetime savings.
Pardon? Yeah, that was everything that I had. But at that point in my life, I was like, I had a little bit of success and confidence. So for me to roll it in, my mindset was, listen, if this doesn't work out, at least I'm trying. And I know how to build at that point. And I knew being open. And my whole thing was like, as long as I'm able to learn in the process and not make crippling mistakes that are gonna completely burn the business, I'm okay. And I had validation that like I was onto something. But in the beginning, I mean, I hustled every single supermarket in the country myself, knocking on the doors. At that stage, I was like, hey, this is stevia. This is a better alternative than these artificial sweeteners. Oh, we've got Splenda. It's natural. I'm like, well, it's not. Like, it was such a hard conversation. I mean, I had people that thought my name was Steve. It's like, oh, stevia. I mean, it was crazy. But that first kind of chapter of building the business was crazy. I mean, culturally, in real time, when you need problems solved or questions answered, like it was even a different culture in how they did business in Colombia.
Right.
It was, I don't want to say it was a nightmare, but I definitely learned a lot in that process. I mean, packaging was off. They used the wrong material, so we couldn't even open the packets. I was like 2 months late from the order.
Did it go forward from there, or it kind of?
Well, it did, but I was like, I got to change a lot of things immediately. Okay. So it led me over to Asia, where I knew that they were very progressive in growing stevia. One-way ticket over there in 2009. They had the first stevia conference. That was a pretty crazy story because I was in conversations with trying to find proper manufacturing and extraction, because we came up with a theory to essentially get rid of all the bitter parts of the plant. That's what we came up with, which was causing that bitterness. So we're like, all right, if we break it down, we extract certain glycosides and different components of the plant, we can get the sweet parts. So anyways, went over to Asia on a one-way ticket. That was a crazy journey in itself. I was there for a few months, really learning supply chain. Like that was a big lesson too. Like you got to be there face to face. It's easy to get on Alibaba or online and be like, oh yeah, I trust them. Yeah. Who's talking to me? Are they really a manufacturer? Are they a distributor? Are they a broker? You got to sort that out yourself. Right. My first conference, I went there, I was probably half the age of everybody in the room. But I had my branding down, I had my material, I had my formulation, coming from Colombia. Mm-hmm. I sat there and like, all right, this is the best way to get manufacturers. During the first kind of intermission, I sat there in the middle where everybody was kind of congregating around the coffee. There's probably 500, 600 people there, a lot of manufacturers, distributors. I put all of my branding out on the table. I looked around and I waited and I watched. I observed and I listened. And next thing I know, I go back in, second time back out on the next intermission. Boom, all the manufacturers came to me. And I was like, booked up my calendar. I said, this is, I've got 2 months there. I got a month, 2 months in this area. If you want me, you got to fly me. I got to see manufacturing. I got to feel, I got to taste. I had people leave me, for traveling for a day and a half to walk to see a massive building. They wouldn't show me what's in there because there was nothing in there. I mean, crazy stories.
Really? Was there that one account that made you feel like, okay, this is going to take me off?
Yeah, so, fast forward, got everything set up, got the manufacturing set up in the US, and then we went out there and started getting a few smaller accounts, and Then we got a meeting with Whole Foods, and to sell Whole Foods, you actually have to go region to region. We got a meeting at corporate, so I'll never forget that. That was a big validation. Really tough buyer. He was like, "Listen, I've heard about the stevia. I don't like the taste of it. What's the deal?" I'm like, "We're first in the market for organic," because at that time, other companies started coming out, big chemical companies. Giant conglomerates, billion-dollar companies. Like, how was I going to compete with that? So I actually took a step back and said, I'm going to be first. This was 13 years ago already. I'm going to be first in the market, not just a niche, but I'm going to go niche, going organic. And my whole mindset was, I don't need to be the biggest in the space, but if I can own 10% of a multi-billion-dollar industry, that's not a bad business model.
What was your first?
So Whole Foods said, they tried it. They said, "This is the best tasting stevia we've ever tried. Will you give us exclusivity?" I said, "Will you give us a national rollout?" So that gave us distribution, that gave us validation, that gave us access through, the natural trade distributors to get out to, a lot of independents out there.
How did you deal at that point with, for example, the manufacturing the product, right, where you have to come up with money, and then having a store that will tell you, okay, well, I'm not going to pay you in 90 days, 60, 90 days. So that gap can literally take down a company.
Just put it this way, I didn't pay myself for years.
Okay.
So I did it lean and mean. That was the whole thing. If we didn't have marketing dollars to spend, we didn't spend it.
Because having a lot of accounts can also
cripple your business big time, and it's happened for sure. I've learned some valuable lessons in this journey. But in the beginning, it was just scrappy. We had the margins, so I was just putting it back into the business.
They wouldn't pay in advance.
Back into the business. First account I got, they gave me in advance. So I was pretty creative in finding different accounts out there that the volume was there, the margin was there. They were I like to call them kind of like third tier companies that like you wouldn't expect to be selling product. I'll just tell you straight up, like TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Home Goods, right? You wouldn't think that would be a good outlet. It was 1,500 stores moving 6 units a week. Paying on time. There was profit in there. It was an awesome account. It wasn't like a glamour shot like Whole Foods and then, the next big win was Walmart. But I was, in the beginning days, like I was finding these offshoot accounts that would fuel profit and roll it into the other side of the business. So, I was just thinking.
So that wasn't a problem at any point in time with the business?
Yeah. It's funny. I don't want to say problem. Let's just say learning curve.
Learning, yeah, absolutely.
It's different between thinking scrappy when you're hands on the business versus suddenly fast forward 10 plus years into the business. Like these days that I'm talking about, like that was fun to me. I wasn't making any money, but I knew the spirit was there.
One man team.
We had a small operation. It was maybe 3 people at the time.
Doing
sales. Basically, sales was me. Operations.
You started with them since the beginning, or?
In the beginning, it was me. And then from there, I actually went to FGCU, and I met 𝐍𝐚𝐭𝐢𝐸 𝐂𝐨𝐦𝐩𝐚 who's the dean of the entrepreneurship school. At the time, it wasn't an entrepreneurship school. And I said, "Hey, this is what I got, and I can't afford any help. Do you have any interns?" So we started this internship program. So I was actually molding as we grew. I was able to grab interns, show them the ropes, grow the business. So really, bootstrap, grassroots approach.
When Whole Foods was your first big account, right?
It was the first big account that helped us with the distribution.
How many years into the business was that?
Probably 2.
2 years in?
Yeah, just about.
And you were still by yourself?
We had like 3 or 4 people working for us at that point. Maybe 2 or 3. Now that I think about it, it's all a blur. and then the big one was, so we started getting some solid distribution. We were getting a name for ourselves. In that process as well, I started getting phone calls from food and beverage manufacturers saying, "Hey, we've tried these other stevia products on the market, or extracts in our food product or in our beverage product." they don't taste good. They have an aftertaste. Why does your product taste so good? And it was our secret sauce. And suddenly, like, we had a B2B business, and we were supplying to, you know, big food companies, beverage companies, and kind of that, no pun intended, organically, that side of the business happened.
I'm about to say that's how you broke into all these different products.
Which one did you start with, actually?
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of products here.
It's evolved quite a bit. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, so like I've probably redone the formulation 100 times, and the branding and the packaging. But this is still the sachets, the packets that you see used for coffee and tea. And I actually don't have like our bread and butter, which is the all-purpose blend baking product.
Yeah.
Measures 2 to 1.
I can't wait to try
Amazon top.
Cookies.
Yeah, the cookies. So we have a whole now. Like fast forward, we have a whole R&D team. So we've been developing products for food and beverage companies all over.
They're 0 calories.
Yeah, organic. Well, it depends on the product, but our baking products, our blends are sugar free and 0 calories. But these added value products, you know, like this is not an easy product to create. It's organic, sugar free, keto friendly, and it tastes amazing. If you guys want to try it, feel free to open it up.
Oh yeah.
But that was 53 on Amazon during COVID.
How big is the company today?
We are still mean and lean.
Okay.
I can tell you the story about COVID or in the pandemic. As you know, with any growth company, there comes a lot of challenges that you wouldn't expect, like a pandemic,
right,
or tariffs, or you know, a whole other mindset, a culture shift in the business. So it's shifted a little bit, but I'm back in the business with a startup mentality mindset.
Okay.
We were talking about you want to kind of dive in on like the journey. Fast forward 10 years.
Yeah.
I checked a ton of boxes, right? Like making really good money. Company was profitable. I was still doing over 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I was super burnt out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I remember sitting in meetings with my staff, and I'm just like so burnt out. I'd actually physically, like, my eyes would swell, my lips would swell out. It was insane. And I thought, like what is going on with me? Like, am I dying? And we talked about, you know, building a business is fun. It can be fun, but it's also can be taxing on the soul, taxing on the spirit, especially building a business by yourself, right? Like, no investors, no VC. You can have the best business plan in the world, right? Like, it's always going to shift. It's always going to, you know, you don't necessarily know what to expect. You know, things happen in any business that you don't expect. Would have you ever expected a pandemic? Like, what? You see that shit in movies.
Yeah.
So anyway, how good is that, by the way?
That's so good. Seriously, and I'm not just saying it.
No, you don't have to.
I swear.
Go look at the thousands of reviews we have on Amazon. It's a good
product. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, as easy as that looks, that is a complicated formulation to get done.
That's really good.
Do you think that no matter where you are with the business, like either starting the business or if you're financially at the top, you still have to take care of it as if you were just starting it, because the risk is always there?
Looking back at my journey, I mean, it's been a humbling few years, to say the least. I was sharing with you in we'll call it, I think, like 2017, 2018. I was so burnt out. My doctor said to me, "There's like, basically, at the rate that you're going to have a heart attack if you don't shift." And that's when I brought in some different type of, you know, different people to help me run the business, different consultants. And it changed the culture of my business. And suddenly it's like, great, I've checked all these boxes. I've got commas, I've got zeros. You know, I went home. I have all the things that, you know, we all work our asses off for. And suddenly I felt extremely lonely. And I was in the silo in my own business. And I knew culturally, like, it's shifted big time. It's good, right?
I think that's better than Nutella.
I think it is too. I think it is too.
So you had the money.
Yeah, the money was there. And
you had the money, but you were still, it wasn't, you didn't feel
I actually felt, you know, I felt alone in the journey. And I had to start taking some time off for myself. And when I did that, because I've created this family culture and brought in different people, suddenly there was a whole other mindset in the business, which wasn't my initial, how I kind of raised the family.
Yeah.
And, it was definitely a good learning curve. But, I came back, I took some time off, to really work on myself.
Did you ever feel like that before you felt like financial success?
Did I feel, well, as an entrepreneur, you always feel like you want more. Right. After a while, it's like a video game. It's like, great, I achieved that. Yeah. This is how I don't feel anything.
Right.
I need more.
Yes.
It's like you always have to be chasing something.
You're chasing your tail.
Yeah.
And that's part of the journey too. It's like, when we're young, what's the formulation of success? Coming from the parents. Work your ass off, work really hard, go to school, get an occupation, make as much money as possible equals happiness. Yeah. Right?
Right? So
right? Like
the opposite.
And as we are evolving from our parents' generation, like that doesn't equal success.
Right.
Money doesn't equal success.
Right.
I've learned.
Right.
Trust me, I've been there.
Yeah.
And
did you enjoy the process?
Which part of the process?
The journey.
Yeah.
Or do you think you were always trying to hit that new goal that you didn't get a chance to enjoy it fully? So then then you realized and looked around and saw, oh, I've got the money, I've got any, financially I can have anything, and you don't feel a certain way, right? When
you don't, right.
So that can mess with
you don't feel validated.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're in your own silo in your own organization. Mm-hmm. Finger on the pulse. Like I'm a creative, right? I like to innovate. I like to see things. That doesn't make me a good operator, right? That doesn't make me, a good manager. Mm-hmm. So as you evolve and as you grow, it's like really looking at yourself and finding your gaps. So, that side of the business was a gap for me. And, you got to trust people. You got to trust people that are running that side of your business. Mm-hmm. And certainly, just because you go from a, $500,000 company to a $5 million to a 10 to a 15 to a $30 million company, things become different. You can only control and see so much. And the bigger you get, the more you're trying to control. Right. And that eats away, so especially because you're not necessarily working on the things that you love in your business. Mm-hmm. And you're dealing with, the politics, the personality. It's just like, fuck, man, like, I don't, like, this isn't fun anymore. Yeah. And, being a sole proprietor of the business, like, I don't have anyone else to rely on. Like, I imploded. I truly imploded. Yeah. And basically, I took a good year off from the business. I still was getting my P&Ls. I still was, but, that was a journey that I had to do for myself. I realized,
Were you married at the time when you took
No. I couldn't be in a relationship longer than a week, 2 weeks, a month. It was this rotating. I was in the same cycles, these same patterns. Mm-hmm. I told myself the story, and I knew it wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't healthy for other people. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to find a partnership at that time. Like, I wanted to have a family. I was in my mid to late 30s, and I knew like I had to work on myself. Yeah. And I realized, when we were talking about that side of the journey, I did a lot of work with shamans. I went down to South America. I worked with different modalities and plant medicine to really heal.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. What made you heal?
Really looking at my core, understanding like, all right, if I don't know how to love myself, like how am I going to love others? How does that resonate in the world? Yeah. Taking a deep dive into your introspective persona, and asking yourself some really hard questions. Yeah. And listen, you're given the cards that you're dealt. At the end of the day, we all do our best. Our parents do our best. They want nothing but the best for us. But what they learn, what they learn from their parents, what their parents learn from their grandparents, it's all generational shit. Yeah. We're just living in such a different era right now. And, of course, I was given the cards from my parents, which is a total blessing. It's not, oh, boo-hoo, like, it's not just how you look at that. Yeah. And again, that simple formula, right? Yeah. Work as hard as you can until you have a meltdown equals happiness. Right. What? you know.
What was
so? Yeah, I had to change the patterns. I had to rewire.
Yeah.
And you know, I was on this quest to meet my partner during that year, and I did. And I changed my patterns on learning to love myself, learning to love others in a different way. Ended up meeting my wife in Costa Rica, December of 2019, and yeah, we went for it.
Yeah.
You know, got pandemic happened, and that forced me to be back into my business. Right. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, like, where was I? I wasn't traveling. I was traveling the world for years. And
is she from Costa Rica?
No, she's from the other coast, Florida. But interesting background. She's a Kiwi and a Jamaican. Her parents are. So yeah, got a beautiful boy out of it for sure. Yeah. So she got pregnant. You know, I knew I was ready. That doesn't mean that that's easy, but you gotta sometimes when it feels right in your heart, you just gotta get out of your head into your heart,
right, and
do it. But that forced me to come back into my business in another light.
And you felt ready to come back? I
did. So here's where the pivot happens, right? Like, I'm peeling back layers of my business, and I'm like, wow, am I missing this? I was getting my P&Ls, you know, what I thought was accurate on paper, maybe wasn't necessarily accurate. You know, I had
you gotta check those balance sheets.
You know,
somebody was messing up.
So, you know, without my approval, there was a multi-million-dollar marketing spend that with no KPIs. You know, just say I had to shake up the organization in a big way. It was just out of control, the spending.
Wow.
And it was a super valuable lesson. So, but granted, you know, found my partner, and at that point I was like, oh, this is it, right? I've checked all these boxes. This is what I was missing. And of course, at that point, you know, the universe slaps you in the face, and your business pivots, and you're like, oh shit, I got to get back to work.
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was really, really hard. The business at that point, you know.
Did she get into the business too?
No.
No.
You know, for me, it was like, what makes her happy, and raising a kid is a business in itself for sure. And she's an amazing mom, and now we're figuring out what her, you know, what's kind of next in her chapter. But she was a pediatric nurse, and she was a yoga teacher, and definitely a healer.
Yeah.
But which was good for me.
Yeah.
So
you seem like you're great at sales.
Right?
Or no?
Well, apparently my team previously didn't think so.
Well, you seem
that was a good lesson, because somehow down the road they made this conscious decision to say, let's keep Ben out of these meetings.
Yeah. Well, the reason I say that is because just, you know, your story, but also with that, right? With sales equals money. So was that a driving factor for you?
Money? Yeah, I never looked at myself as a good salesman. I just looked at myself as creating something that I love and telling someone the story.
Got it.
And
that produced sales.
And I mean, it's done right along the way. Yeah.
Yeah. That was your formula.
Yeah. Well, it's just it aligned. It aligned for me.
Right.
And when you're aligned and people see your truth, they want it. You know, they want to buy in on the story.
Yeah.
So my other biggest break. I know I'm jumping around, so thank you guys. Hopefully you're tracking here.
Yeah.
I got a call from Walmart a few years after Whole Foods, and they said, you know, who are you guys? At that point, there was a handful of big brands. Sweet and Low had their stevia product. Truvia, who's owned by Cargill, which is one of the largest, you know, chemical companies in the world. I was up against some big dogs for sure. And I got the call from Walmart. I walked into the meeting with the buyer, and I was honest. I said, why do you, this was 2010, 2011, maybe 2012, it's all blurred again. So I said to the buyer, I was like, really good dude. I was like, thank you so much, like, an honor, biggest retailer in the world. I'm like, I don't think this makes sense for your demographic. And he says, and he looks at me, he's like, you know, I'm the buyer of the biggest retailer in the world. Like, what? And I was honest with him, and I said, and they kind of threw him off his buyer game, and he was like, I love what you do. Your product's superior than everybody else. If we can figure out a program to make this affordable to the mass, I see the future of organic. This is before, you know, at that time, organic foods had their own little section in a store. I mean, it wasn't mainstream, and it was awesome. I was like, all right, and you know, I figured out a smart way through volume and manufacturing and co-packing to create a product that was affordable to the mass. And ever since then, we've been, Walmart's been such an incredible partner. As sometimes they get a bad rap, but listen, we're creating amazing products that the mass can afford, not necessarily an elitist product.
Right.
But that's one chapter. But back to what I like to talk about is like, the shit that goes on in the business.
Yeah. Did you guys did a big company ever try to like knock you out, knock you guys down, or buy you guys out? Or
yeah, I've had opportunities to sell the company. The big guys, being that we were such a niche within a niche, we weren't a threat to them until we started to become a threat. And I started noticing, I'm super hands-on in branding and packaging. Like, we started off as a green, we went to purple, they were shifting. Like, I saw them looking at us as a validator, which was good. I was like, all right, well, whatever. They want to copy the look and feel of our packaging. They want to change the name to an all-purpose blend. We're doing something right, but you can only focus on that so much.
Yeah.
We were just focused on building distribution and creating a healthy company. So, yeah, it's.
Is your plan to ever sell, or you want to just keep the company?
Was it an easy no?
What's that?
Not selling? Or was it like, oh man, that's...
At the time, my thinking was a bit narrow. Things change when you get married and have a kid, for sure. At that point, pre-marriage and the work that I was doing, it was just about, again, next level. But what I'm realizing is like, how much do you really need in life? I'm trying to simplify my life as much as possible. I don't need as much stuff. That it's like, right, you can have a bunch of homes. That doesn't make it easier on you. Just simplify it. So yeah, I think on my journey now is just sharing. I came back from the pandemic and it was a shit show. So let's just say the people that were in my organization running it, not all. To be fair, not all. There was a handful of folks that were not doing things with integrity, and it was a huge lesson for me.
Yeah.
And I had to roll up my sleeves and get dirty again and push through it. And at that point, a new father, learning that, a new husband, it was heavy. It was a lot. It definitely it fucked with my psyche in a major way.
Did that make you? Well, you saw a lot of spending, right, from your employees?
Yeah, I mean, I always invested into my employees.
Right.
And it was like 2 bonuses a year, making really good money, growth. And I think the reality is they didn't know any better because they didn't work. A lot of them didn't work for any other organizations. And sometimes when you bring in a different type of mindset, it's a good lesson for me. Like, it's true, a bad apple can spoil a bunch. And it is what it is. But that, I was the folks that were in the organization that were amazing. They're still with me, but it gave me the opportunity to reboot the company and reorganize it and create the vision again. And I get to create new products because I'm heard in my own organization. Doesn't that sound crazy?
It's the problems of scale, right? With that, a lot of people don't think about.
Bigger isn't necessarily better,
right? And once you get there, like you said, if you love to do something and you're scaling, most of the time you're doing it less because now you're taking on different hats.
You think I want to manage people?
Yeah.
I don't like managing people.
Yeah.
Look at financial statements. It's not enjoyable to me. I want to create things that don't exist.
Right.
And tell the story. That's fun. Right. There's not, for me, there's not a better high when you come up with the idea, you create it, and then you go to the biggest retailer in the world and they're like, holy shit, this is awesome. You're like, wait, did I create that? Yeah. It's a bit of, it's a bit of a drug. That's what I love doing. And I wasn't able to do that in my own organization for years because you got to let the business breathe sometimes. You got to let it grow in areas. So suddenly you're just sitting in this, you're not doing the things that you love.
Did you feel like the business kicked you out at some point?
I think the culture of the business there was a reason why they didn't want me around,
Mm-hmm.
you know, without saying so much.
Yeah.
What about that person that's watching and says, yeah, but you were getting paid?
Well, that's
Right.
suddenly it was like I'm healing myself and traveling and doing my thing because, you know, granted, I put everything I had into the business, and, you know, granted, I have all of the risk. They didn't have to understand that.
Right.
That wasn't their problem.
Right.
You know, I had to make sure that you know, that their checks were cleared every single week, no matter what.
Yeah.
They don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
What would you say was your biggest challenge throughout your whole journey from day one to today?
It's the whole thing's a challenge. I would say for me, the psyche of
Advice to somebody that's young, that hasn't been in business yet, wants to get into business. What's the advice there? Like,
so the version of myself now to the version of when I was this, you know, this cocky 20-something-year-old kid, just like, I'm going to build $1 billion empire. I wish I equipped myself with the tools that I have now around stress, around anxiety, around alignment, utilizing different modalities when I would go down these rabbit holes, because I was living, you know, last 2 years, it was living in the space of the past. And just it was heartbreak for me because I treated my team like family. It was a heartbreak. And then it was like, of course, I'm going to question myself. You know, I'm not good enough. How did I even let this happen? This is my own business. So I'm living in the space of the past. I'm living in this space of the future because it feels like I'm failing, even if that wasn't the case, because of, you know, we were still doing well in the business. But that's how I felt. So I was living in this state of past, present, so constant fear. Then of course, like, that would lead to depression, that would lead to anxiety, that would lead to stress. So it's funny, it's like I did so much work before that I was back into it because it was so much that hit me at once. You know, it's like, what else can I ask for? It's like, all right, I'm dealing with all these issues with my organization. I got a kid. You know, I'm married. Like, I got to figure that whole new space, you know, in itself. Oh, well, what else? We got tariff challenges. We've got supply chain issues. We've got co-packer issues. Like, everything and anything that you possibly could have think of that was coming in happened. So it's, you know, how do you stay above that? It's really hard. And I just got back from a retreat. Of course, I'm like, you know, I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not in a good way. You know, I'm having some really just not good thoughts, and I don't believe in taking Xanax or, you know, let's medicate yourself. Like, you got to deal with your shit. If you don't deal with it, you know. But I was in this space of like, I was in survival mode, and
do you still feel a little like that, or do you have your moments that it comes back?
Well, so I ended up going to a retreat in Costa Rica last month. You know, hyper focused. You know, the curated group of entrepreneurs and executives and leaders and thinkers that we're all going through, you know, the same mindset. You got to show up happy, but like, you really feel like you're rotting on the inside. Yeah. So, you know, it's able to work with different programs to get aligned before you get there, working with different, you know, plant medicines. And, you know, for me, it really, it's a regroup and a big shake up to your internal, to your consciousness, and aligning yourself in a way that helps you realize what's right in front of you, and it gives you a bit of a blueprint. It's like 20 years of therapy wrapped up in a week. And it was hard work, but, you know, going through this journey with a handful of like-minded people, but also giving you the tools, an understanding of why you were in that space. I was sharing with you, like, living in that past, living in the future creates fear. So I was living in a constant state of fear when that wasn't necessarily the reality. Right. So it's really, when you're navigating from a low frequency, you know, of doubt, of fear, it's easy to stay in, you know, in that space of those rabbit holes. So what I've learned is like how to get myself out of it, what triggers me.
Do you think experience puts you in those type of thoughts or like thinking, like, meaning the more you learn, the more you understand the world, the more you understand how things work behind a company. Like a company is very structured, just like it's like a government, right? And you understand the things that are behind many things that maybe just like, I don't want to say a normal person, but someone that's just working from a 9 to 5 and a regular job, just that's what they do, and then just on the weekends they're like having fun at the park. It's like almost living in a bubble. But when you're in this type of world and this type of level of thinking, like it puts you on a different mode, you know. And
of course, like just I may be working a 16-hour day actually in the office, but I'm really working 24 hours. You're waking up in the middle of the night thinking. You know, you go home, like I can put on the best game face in the world of my wife, but she feels the what's going on in me. Like it's hard to turn off. So that's what I'm saying. Like I was gifted in this last retreat, in this journey, with the realization I have, you know, now I have different tools in my toolkit to mitigate the fear, mitigate the anxiety, the stress. If I feel certain triggers, I know how to kind of get rid of them. You know, we all have the capability to learn these things through breath work, through, you know, meditation, through gratitude, making yourself, you know, treating your body as it's, you know, as it's you know, honoring this container, that the gift that we all have. You know, I think you brought up sobriety around there, like not drinking. Like when I was, you know, pre-marriage and like building the business, and when I was in this headspace, I didn't, what it was like, I can't wait till Friday or Saturday, or even sometimes during the weekend, I would self-medicate through, you know, I drank a lot, you know, it was numbing.
Yeah.
I would drink because I had to.
Yeah. You're gonna
not because I wanted to.
Yeah. But people would be like, but you got, how do you feel that way? You have money.
You have everything.
Of course. You know,
but that just
I
was what would they call it? The F boy in the day. You know, I go out in the club and the bottles and I didn't. You know, it was fun it was numbing and it felt good for a second, but I would wake up in the morning with such anxiety and such depression. I was like, what? This is what it's about? You know?
That's why I asked you, like, if you felt like that before you had financial success, because I think that if you were feeling like that before financial success is probably going to just maximize it.
You heard me. You heard what I said. The best times in the business was in the beginning. It was fun. I was broke as shit. Traveling, walking, like going one-way tickets to countries, figuring this shit out. Like I love the unknown. You know, it's being uncomfortable. That's what I thrive in. Like making things a little uncomfortable and like navigating from that space.
Not knowing.
Next.
Part of my journey as I had the success was like travel for me was like my escape, but also my education around culture, around like ideas. I would force myself every year to go somewhere by myself with a backpack that was uncomfortable, and learn and listen and take a step back. Like, you know, I would get gratitude from that. Like, life is really good, but it's really easy to jump back into the space and like you're sucked back down into the rabbit hole of low frequency. Or, you know, when you're a business owner by yourself, yes, you're dealing energy all day, right? Yeah. So you come and you do all your work to get your energy bank up. You show into the office and it's like tick, tick, tick. And by the end of the day, you're just like emotionally and mentally drained.
Yeah.
Do you feel that now that you have your family, your wife, your son, that you feel more pressure on top of you than when it was just you?
Or more support.
Or more support.
You have a different purpose.
Yeah,
because you're not this independent, selfish dude that can do whatever he wants with very little consequences.
Yeah, I was about to say it's not.
Now there's consequences. It's not just me. I got a wife to take care of, and I have a son to raise and to grow, and like I want to be my best self and best version of myself because the kids they know.
So you feel that maybe that anxiety and that pressure is more? You feel it more because
it's or less.
Them?
It's different because what I've learned is to mitigate and to manage my anxiety and to look at, You know, so like I've been talking about the last 2 years because it's been such a wake up call for me. You know, how I look at that is actually a blessing. And I see so much light in that experience. It's like, you know what, like, F these guys, you know, I'm blessed with the team that's with me now. Some of the folks that went through that journey with me that I knew they were diamonds. I saw how they were held back from their true growth. Like, I've got rock stars now that are running my business. I was like, you know what, thank you. Thank you. Maybe my story in my head at the time before I was, you know, that I had my family was, all right, I'm going to build this $100 million business and have this major exit. Like, that's not that important. You know, like being happy in the present, being happy in the moment is more important than having a couple more zeros at the end of your bank account. Yeah. You know, these experiences are awesome. Yeah. You know, maybe you'll take something from me, maybe you won't, but this is what fills my cup. Yeah. And what came to me, you know, through my journey, and you're asking some really good questions, is, you know, to me, being of service is super important. And I think sharing my story with you and, you know, being able to offer, you know, different modalities that I do to help, we're living in a society now, scrolling all day, not feeling enough. Like, why aren't I there? I didn't really have those challenges when I was starting my business. Yeah. This social platform, you know, is a blessing, but it can also be a curse if you don't know how to, like, ask yourself realistic questions. Yeah. So I think there's a different level of pressure. I just spoke at FGCU, the entrepreneurship school, and like, I went in there raw, and I told the story, and they're like, oh, wow, you know, what products in Walmart? You know, you have this, you have that, and then I told them, like, here's what happens in a business as well. You know, you got to be able to understand to navigate and manage. Like, not everything is a rocket ship. Not everything is a unicorn. You got to be able to mitigate the down spirals.
Now, realistically, how much do you think people are actually going to understand what you're saying without living it?
They got to go through it, but that's the point that I'm trying to make. Is like, I want to be of service and be able to provide tools, whether it's meditation every day, gratitude exercises, getting people aligned, having different
showing people that not having a business, not everything is positive and you know, gold, and like,
because that's what they see all day.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not the reality. It's not reality. You got to be able to lose. Listen, I've lost a lot. And I should lose that narrative. I should lose that language. It's not a loss. It's a gift. Because in the darkness, in the hardships, you can either be a victim, or you could say, this is a lesson and I have the opportunity to grow from it. And that's where I'm at right now, is like, I'm finally out of that headspace of like, wow, this is actually a gift. Thank you. I honor it. I can learn from it, and I know how to grow. And I've got this incredible team. And it's like, all right, we scrape the business in a way to get back down to the bare bones of, we know our COGS. We really know our true costs in our organization. We've got a strategy on how to build growth. We're going to think scrappy again. Let's get that mindset of like building a business, and everybody's on board. No one's in a silo. This is a collaborative business again.
How many employees do you have?
I think we've got like 15 to 20. It's good. It's kind of I forget these days. I don't know. I'm like in it. But
where is it? Is it based out of here?
HQ is down here in off the Taylor Road. We've got a really cool office. I invite you guys to come. But we're all over. We've got co-packers around the U.S. We've got warehouse on the East Coast, West Coast. But down here, it's operations, sales, marketing. We've got a talented group of folks that just kill it. Like, I'm super blessed to have them on board, and it's invigorating. I feel I live in the startup mode. Like, I love this feeling. So it's like a startup, but not a startup mindset. So to answer that again, like,
it's almost like resetting, but now with experience, right?
Big time. And I'm able to look at what I went through over the last few years and say, all right, well, this is growth. I know how to do this again. And I changed the narrative in my head around, I'm going to build the company that X amount and sell. Like, that's living in the future. That's creating my own fear. That's creating my own anxiety.
You thought before?
Yeah, I was so focused on the future. Let's like be present. Like, be grateful to what I have. Like, thank you, Walmart. Thank you, Amazon. Thank you to these customers that we work with on a daily for providing for us, and give us the opportunity to go out there and keep innovating. Like, so now I'm in like back in my innovation mode. We're developing some really cool products.
This is really cool you say this, because when I was 18, I always thought, I'm gonna retire at 30. Okay?
No,
But that was in the previous business my brother and I were in, and then everything was fast, scale.
Yeah.
And then this business kind of slowing it down a little bit, enjoying it more.
yeah, man.
What would you tell yourself when you were 25, 26, starting up your business to where you're at today? Would you say number-wise you've gotten to a good number that you could sell, but how do you feel like in right now, you know? Like, because your previous self would have sold, right? And your current self didn't. So what do you...
I'm just enjoying the moment again. I'm not, again, it's like,
You're not thinking.
I'm not thinking about what I could have, should have done. I'm thinking about what I can do in the moment.
Yeah.
And how I can love what I like. How do I navigate and how do I make decisions based upon a heart space over a head space? Because our consciousness, right? The chatter in our brain that can create doubt, that can create the fear, like it's managing that little voice in your head. And sometimes like stepping back, and that's what I'm talking about, like meditation and breath work and doing certain things that can get you in that space of high frequency, which I love doing. And I want to be able to, like, you know, I used to, you know, from a high level, I would know some of these modalities. Now it's actually getting granular in learning these specific disciplines. And I want to be able to share this. And I want to be able to
always tells me that meditation is amazing and we should practice it. But I've never like looked into it, but maybe I would now.
I'm happy.
It can help.
Our minds are going so fast all the time.
Yeah.
One thing that I knew accidentally, part of my discipline as an entrepreneur and as a creative, before I knew anything about like proper meditation and breath work, my goal every day was just to shut my mind off for 5 to 10 minutes. And I knew I
don't know how to do that.
I'll share with you. That will be another episode.
I don't know. Yeah,
that will be another episode.
To not think of nothing, like, I don't know.
Nothingness
How do
is
you
great.
do that?
Oneness is great. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
never
haven't
in the
gotten that
nothing
far.
box.
The only thing
I'm
I've
never in the
practiced is,
nothing box.
like
My head is
dropping
up.
my phone.
Yeah.
Like shutting off that
That
way.
helps
I've
a
never
lot.
like shut off like
Do you
not to
meditate?
think.
I don't meditate, but something that we do is like Shannon and I, we try to disconnect. So with the digital side, we're so involved on the digital side of a lot of businesses that I don't even have a personal Facebook or Instagram. Like, I just disconnect.
No,
and it helps a lot.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That you're that forward thinking.
Yeah. So I just put out the content,
good,
just try not to consume it, because if
Right.
not, I'm living on there all day.
Big time. Like, go home, relax. Like, we have the tools to get to ground. That's the biggest thing is ground. Do you guys realize we have some of the most beautiful beaches in the world?
Right.
Yes.
Leave your phone.
Right.
Go to the beach. Sit there. Look at the sunset.
And we
Look
never
at the
go to
sunrise.
beach.
Right?
Well, I
Because
mean,
we're so in this consumption of, like, we need to keep building. We need to keep growing.
Yeah.
We got to No, enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
If you can align yourself in that way, guess what? Abundance starts organically happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're going to be attracting that, you know, that space in.
Right.
So, I mean, that's one thing. Like, just give yourself a fucking minute.
Yeah.
Take a break.
Yeah.
Relax.
Right.
And
Chill,
sometimes
enjoy the
we feel
moment.
bad because we say, okay, we're this is our build mode that we have to build and we have to, you know. But at the same time, like, we have 2 daughters too.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot.
one is almost 8, the other one's almost 5. So it's like they remember now what,
Big time.
you know.
And
So
with
we
this
have to
business is
focus.
different.
Oh yeah.
With this business
the
is
one we
different.
had
With the
before.
previous one, we were in the food business.
In the food business too, yeah. It's
Oh,
hard.
Yeah.
You're
I
asking
was in a
very-
bakery. I was in a
You're
You're
bakery.
asking the right
He
questions.
was
Yeah, that's why.
never
Yeah,
home, you know?
and
It's hard.
I'll tell you, like, I was there 24/7.
Big
You
time.
know, everybody was sleeping. I was working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was never home.
And you know, but then this business is completely different to what we had before. But I was gonna ask you a question based on that too. Like, do you think that when everything goes your way, like in business, you start, you know, it goes up, you know, and you're going 100 miles per hour.
Sure.
That's a problem too.
Big time. You gotta learn how to pay for it.
Yeah, because
So,
then if
Are you
things start not going your
Are you
way,
asking me how I paid for it? Without investors and VC?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a good, because I've been in business for many years too, and I know how important certain businesses need money, right?
Sure.
There's certain digital side, easy peasy.
Yeah.
But when it comes to
inventory, I'm sitting on $10 million. I'm sitting on $10 million of inventory.
Okay. Yes. So that's that's where my question comes in. You know, it's like, okay, so how did this happen? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's a good question. I mean, I think it's a good question.
That's a tactical question. I can walk you through it. It's a loaded question, but there's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, you know, when we were doing really well, I always kept investing back into my business, profits back into growth, profits to go back into growth. I barely dipped into it for myself. You know, I always took a modest salary and still take a modest salary. I invested into my people, keeping them incentivized, but reinvesting. When I didn't need money, I went to the bank and started off with a small $50,000 loan, and or I should say line of credit. And yeah, that's how I built inventory management. And you get paid back to the bank, sweep accounts. There's strategic ways to do it.
Right.
You know, I went the other way than like, all right, let's raise a bunch of money and then invest it back into the business. I just bootstrapped it and went scrappy. If I was to do it again, I guess like one, I'll never build a business by myself. It's super lonely for me. I'm not saying anyone can do it, but listen, it's like once you know your strengths and your weaknesses, like I'm not a financial guy, I'm not an operator, I'm not a manager. I can create really cool products first to market. I see it. I'm seeing, like, you know, and also along the way, I've had ideas. I've seen other companies sell for hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm like, help them create these products. That's where the ego comes in. But on the other end of it, I'll never build a business by myself because I'm super collaborative. I love working with people. I don't like working in a box. I think more minds in the room, sometimes the better.
Support.
Yeah. Building businesses with people that can check their ego at the side, super important. And they're right, like it's energetically, it's got to feel good. I don't want to be in a room where it's like the elephant in the room. Like we all know without saying anything if someone's an asshole, you know. And that's how I'm rebuilding the company again. I'll never build it by myself, and I'll never do it with all my own money. It's just, it was different before I had a family because I was like, fuck it, if it doesn't work out, whatever, I'll build again. I know how to do it. But now it's like family. You start thinking about like college funds and shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of it's like your own psyche around it. So that's how I would do it.
You mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you were not a school person. Did you say that?
I wasn't a good student. No.
So now that you had, like, if you had success and you weren't a good student, what makes you think now about school for your kids?
It's a good question. I shared with you I'm building a home in Costa Rica. So yeah, I genuinely have concerns about raising my son in the U.S. In this environment of abundance in real time. You know, I want. It's important for me to raise my son in an environment where he's in nature. I think nature is the best teacher that we have right here. You can learn so much. Forces you to be still, listen. There's so many lessons just right in front of us. We all have it in us. I want him to think for himself. I like the fact where we're building, technology isn't accessible. You know, obviously I want him to be relevant too, but learning different languages, learning how to adapt to different cultures, speaking a handful of different languages, like equipping him for him to jump back into this type of environment and just being a Zen master. Versus like, I don't want to raise him in this abundance, affluent society where, you know, what his worry about is what kind of car he's going to be driving. Is that real? Is that how I want him to be a leader in this world? And yeah, so things are different. I want him to feel love, not pressure. And if he can navigate his world from a space of love and higher frequency all the time, this kid's going to be a rock star, whatever he does. You know, I can already feel that energy from him. So Yeah, I mean, we had different pressures growing up, and I don't blame our parents. Everyone's just doing their best, and they want the best for us. And what they're taught is, we're living in a different world where we can do a bit of a deep dive within ourselves, and we're all equipped with making some of these decisions.
It's interesting you say that, because some countries in Central America and South America, they want to come here because thinking the opposite of what you're saying, and then you want to go back to Costa Rica because you feel that there. It's just interesting to me.
Sure. Do you think it just comes down to teaching great values, no matter where you're at? Like be happy, be happy with yourself and treat people good. And if you're happy that way without anything, when you have a lot of money or you're chasing, you'll be like, does it start today as opposed to when I have a lot of money in a successful business? That's when I'll be happy. That's when I'll start working on this. That's when I'll start working on that. Is it more like
work on it now?
Work on it now. Work on your inner self today, and it's just gonna pay off even more when you have the financials or the material things.
It's not necessarily focusing on the material things. It's just focusing on the moment and being now and being aligned. Yeah. Do things that align with your heart.
Right.
This is just my experience. Right. There's people that have the mindset, I want to make as much money and be in the financial world and cut through a business. That's fine. That's their prerogative. That's what I'm just speaking from what aligns me.
Right.
Until they get there sometimes and they want
to. But I'll tell you this. I have friends in the space. I've had a lot of people in that world that I've sat in retreats with, and they feel empty and they have meltdowns. And it's like, great, I have all of this, but I feel empty.
That's what happens to the majority of artists too, right? You would think that they have it all and that they're the most happiest person, but that's why they become drug addicts or something. They fall into something in trouble because they want that excitement in their life.
Look how many people are killing themselves. That we would look as outsiders.
We're like, what happened? He had it all.
Anthony Bourdain, like, you were the coolest guy. Like, you had everything. Yeah. You got to do your part, but we're living in a different world, and mental health is super important. And I want to be able, like I said, to provide different tools and modalities for people.
We always talk
students,
about mental
it's like
health.
Executives.
It's like this is so funny because every time we have a conversation, like probably 2 days ago, I had a conversation with him about it, and then you come in 2 days after and you say the same thing. So it's like confirmation,
because you're manifesting it, man.
And because I've lived, we're 10 years apart, so I lived a
you
little
brothers?
bit. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I lived a little bit, a little bit more. Right. So I can kind of, like, you can tell me you have 7 more years. Yeah. Experience is a real thing, it's real. Like you can kind of, it kind of feels like you can tell what's going to happen, but you just experienced it.
Well, so what you're talking about is intuition, and it's a gift, and it's energy, and it's how you feel people.
He has that.
You can harness it. It's a gift. Yeah. And it gives you the ability to read situations. It's definitely it's been one of my gifts, and that comes with being creative or whatever it is. That sense of energy that you can't really explain. But the universe somehow just provides, and then you start paying attention. You're like, wait, am I actually putting this out in the world, and how is it coming into me? It's real. I believe in that stuff, big time. Yeah. And when you actually start understanding that within yourself, it's powerful. Yeah, you start using super powerful. Big time. You use it for yourself, and you start navigating the world from that headspace of, okay, well, what aligns me? How do I live in a higher frequency? Nothing to do with money. Yeah. You can ask for joy. You can be in happiness. You can be in the state of mind all day if that's the choice that you want. I mean, we're all dealing with different stresses, but that's called life. You gotta go. I forget who I was listening to, but it's like, listen, like we are way ahead of like back in the day. Like, think about the problems that they had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like what do we get to do? We get to choose whatever we want. We're not worried about plowing our land. Like, that's hardship. That's hard work. Hard, grinding work.
Yeah. We
get to do what we want and what we love. So, and we have the choice. Mm-hmm. And to your point about immigration, I think they have this misconception. Well, that's what's beautiful about America. True. You can start from zero and build anything. Yeah. It's not easy. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. But usually coming from, you know, like from South America, the thing is, go to the U.S., get a degree, be successful, or not even go to school, be successful. Mm-hmm. That's for the most part, the main, like,
the American dream. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yeah. You can come to this country with nothing and build something incredible. Mm-hmm. It's possible.
Right.
And anyone can do it. And what I'm trying to say is, you know, the younger version of myself, I wish I had these tools in my toolkit, in this mindset, and living in a different frequency, and, you know, being able to align myself in a way that when I gut check, use my intuition in the decisions that I make, it aligns, it makes sense, and 99% of the time it's right. Mm-hmm. Versus questioning yourself and doubting yourself and living in fear. That's low frequency.
Right.
So I can share with you guys, I mean, offline, I'll share with you like breath work and ways to get into a higher frequency at any point, and it costs you nothing, right? You think, you know, getting that Ferrari is going to get you in that frequency? It's all smoking mirrors, everyone. It doesn't.
That's great.
Right?
I love hearing it. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look, this is the longest episode we've done, and 100% well worth it.
Awesome.
We want to, you know, thank you so much for being part of this.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to leave off with, like mention?
Yeah.
Before we wrap.
Yeah. We all have the answers. You know, we have the ability to choose. Do you want to live in a low frequency? Do you want to live in a higher frequency? What is important? Is happiness and joy important? That's free. Okay. Love yourself. Really navigate from a space of love, and things just organically start happening. Trust your intuition. It's usually right. And equip yourself with the understanding that things will happen. Things will go wrong. And learn to live in those low points, and realize it's just temporary, right? It's just temporary. What is the lesson from that space? Because there's always going to be a lesson, and it's, if you look at it as a gift, as a growth, you're not going to be a victim. You're going to be that much. Your sword's going to be that much sharper.
Right. Mm-hmm. I love it.
That's it.
Thank you.
You know, kind of freestyle there, but
thank
you.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. It was great meeting you guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. I don't know.
That was awesome.